afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up, a Thursday edition of Middays with TriX57, TriX57.com, and our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, as you probably just heard in the background, our X account as well. Rich Quiñones is here. 2 hours to play with. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this 24th of July, 2025. Another busy Thursday in the world of sports. A lot to dive into. As always, we encourage you guys to get social with us at Rich Q on Q on X, on IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Very easy to do, as I mentioned. And you guys have been fantastic. Also, checking out my YouTube channel, adding 2 new shows that we're working on that will also be aired on the YouTube channel. Back Your Play is coming back, if you will. Next week, we'll start to look into the sports betting lines and the odds in the NFL, college football, a lot of stuff to dissect. And, I know it's, we talk sports, right? We always talk sports on the show, and sports is a form of entertainment. It's a form of entertainment, right? We have our, our debates, our opinions, our back and forth, around the block we go, but it's all about entertaining. And I'm telling you, if you grew up, if you're in your late 30s, early 40s, late 40s, the past several days have been absolutely brutal. I mean, it's like you turn around and part of your youth is absolutely, just going by the wayside. It's going by the wayside. And Ozzy Osbourne passes away, right? Rough life, but entertainer. Theo Huxtable, Jamal Warner, a great actor, right? Basically, we grew up with him watching the Cosby Show. Tragically, passes away. He drowns on vacation with his daughter in Costa Rica, and then you come to learn today that the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, passes away. And listen, we there's no collar shirt today on a Hulk Hogan when he passes away. I can't do it. I can't. I just can't have it today. You have to be a little lax, a little loose on a day like today to pay a little homage to the man. I mean, listen, everyone watched wrestling growing up. Everyone watched wrestling as a kid. You didn't have to be a fanatical fan. You didn't have to be a diehard fan, but you watch. Saturday night main event, then it bleed over to Saturday Night Live, if the WrestleManias, the SummerSlams, Mean Gene, all these guys, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Barber and Roddy Piper and Jimmy Superfly Snuka and Ricky the Dragon and my guy JYD and Tito Santana. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And you watch it as a kid, and maybe you say to yourself, man, this is unbelievable stuff. This is real. And then as you get older, you kind of learn, you kind of figure it out also too, if you're wise to it, that it is entertainment. It is entertainment. And listen, you can, like anything else, when someone passes away and you start to talk about, their legacies, if you will, it's pretty, for a guy like Hulk Hogan, he got himself in a lot of trouble with certain things that he said that were caught on tape that were very racist, and he got booed a lot after that. And he tried to turn around and make amends and everything. But from a wrestling standpoint, as a kid, you would sit there and you kind of put the hand to your ear. You flex the buys, you touch the buys, you tap the buys, what you're going to do, right? I mean, everyone knows. I mean, this dude was like that first mega shredded dude that you would sit there on TV and be like, oh my God, I got to be this guy. He's standing friggin' 6'7". He was a beast, right? But he passes away at the age of 71. And I still believe, we talk about great entertainment icons. Great entertainment icons. It's got to be right there. It's got to be right there with Hulk Hogan. And you can tell me you didn't watch the WrestleManias. You can tell me you didn't watch the SummerSlams. I don't believe you. It's not a Lunes Manolo Mentiroso Man Up Monday, but if it was, I would be calling you guys out right now. I would be calling you guys out. I would. because again, that's part of our youth, our childhood, right? And I'm telling you, I still to this day, I got a bunch of them on VHS. I still remember the 89, 90, 88, 87. I was joking with my buddies today when he was fighting Zeus. I mean, do you guys remember that? I mean, he was ultimately, you talk about the icons in a realm of entertainment and professional sport, professional wrestling. He was definitely an icon. He was definitely an icon. And it just harkens back. You go back and you watch, some of those events. You go back and you watch, just to, just the, I'm telling you right now, again, if you think about this, if you really grew up in the time that I grew up and we all grew up, ultimately, you would, if you were allowed to stay up late, right? You were allowed to watch the Saturday night main event. The Saturday night main event. That was it, man. That was it. And it fluctuated on networks, NBC, Fox, WWE Network, and that came on back in '85. And if you're growing up at the time, you're sitting there saying, "Oh man, I got to stay awake. I got to stay awake. I got to know what's going on, man. I got to see what's happening." It was prime time at its best, and that's what icons do. They elevate their respective genre, right? Their sport, if you will, and they take it to another level. And like I said, with legacies, no one ever has a perfect legacy. No one ever has a perfect legacy. They don't. Like when you look at someone's legacy and you take a step back, you look at a guy and you say, well, maybe he wasn't the best guy off camera. Maybe he said some things that were pretty derogatory. Maybe she made certain remarks that she shouldn't have asked. She treated people like this. There's no perfect legacy. There isn't. So again, we know exactly what transpired years ago to the day, by the way. Hulk Hogan on the tape, on record, all these things saying horrible things, but purely from an entertaining standpoint. Now, you also have to go back, because if you really wanted to go old school and you talk about the wrestling stars like in the 70s with the Ernie Lads and, superstar Billy Graham and Bozo Brazil and Danucci and Ivan Cola, that was all in the 70s. San Martino in the 70s, right? They were kind of dominant figures in the then WWF. And then Andre the Giant basically rose to fame. And then obviously everything took on a life of its own. And Hogan was that catalyst. Now, I will ask you guys this before we get into the other sports talk on this Thursday. So I will ask you guys this. Here's the question of the day. And I'm going to get to your comments. Here's the question of the day for the wrestling, the die-hard wrestling fans out there. It's a pretty easy one for you. Is Hulk Hogan's heel turn the greatest in wrestling history? Because we love a heel turn. We love when you root for a guy and all of a sudden he turns around, he pulls that 180 and you're like, "Oh my God, this guy's a rat. I can't cheer for him. I can't cheer for him anymore. I can't." To me, I believe it's one of the all-time great heel turns in entertainment history, let alone wrestling history, let alone sports history. Sure, you get quarterbacks that go to the rival. You get NBA guys that beat a team for years and then they go cross town. But turning heel like he did is like rat-like behavior. I mean, it is absolutely rat-like behavior. I mean, he went from beloved to like the villain, beloved, and then all of a sudden, boom. And that was part of the genius. And obviously, it was scripted. That was the part of the allure. That was the part that was entertaining, because it didn't really matter if you were 15, 20, 20. You're like, oh man, you're still kind of invested in this because it's all about a heel turn. And we hate heels, but we love to cheer for the villains. Think about that for a moment. We can't stand a heel. We can't in sports. We can't. But somehow in our warped mind, you're almost kind of like, yeah, you know what? I kind of like the villain. I do. I kind of like the villain. I kind of like this because now you get something, you have a reason to go against him, right? And that's, or her. That's the beauty of it. That's the heel turn. That's why they came up with it. That's why they came up with it. And look, everyone has their great entertainers. They're great wrestlers. You put them on that list. And there were certain personalities and traits and characters that I loved with some of these guys. I'm telling you, Tito Santana, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Ricky the Steamboat Dragon, JYD. Love those guys. And everyone's got their top 4, 5, 6 in their list. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, how about this? How about this? How about my pull today? How about my pull today? You ready for this? This shows you. First of all, I am of what you would call now. I am a collectible. I'm all about. I'm very into the merchandising, and I think you guys, if you guys are just new to the show, I posted this a couple times on X, like just the old school display case of all the sports cards. And I was texting my buddy today and I said, I have probably amassed over 10,000 Sports Illustrateds. And there are certain ones that I know of sentiment. And there are others that I have, they're like pristine condition, wrapped in the everything. Kind of like when you put the baseball card in the sleeve. How about this, though? How about this? On a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. How about this? How about me pulling this sucker out from 1985? Oh, look at this bad boy. Look at this. Look at this right here. Look at this. Look at this. It still has my old address as a kid. Look at this pristine. This is from 1985. Matt Mania, Hulk Hogan's Pro Wrestling's Top Banana. The headband, little Hulkster, paying a little tribute with the pipes, little Hulkster. And it's like a 6-7 page spread on the impact that wrestling had back then. So, but as I mentioned, Hulk Hogan passes away. Chuck Mangione passed away as well. So you got Ozzy Osbourne, you got Malcolm Jamal Warner, you got the Hulkster. It's unbelievable. It really is. All right, let's get into some of these comments. And listen, I know some of you guys are diehard wrestling fans. You guys can fire off today. Yes, it is a solid. Thank you. That is, the interesting thing about this is dated April 29th, 1985. And by the way, you know how much this SI was back then? Look, I'm dating myself. I gotta pull back and squint. How much you guys think this Sports Illustrated? Don't Google it. This Sports Illustrated was in 1985. Take a wild stab at it. I want to get to some of your comments, and we will, by the way, get into some training camp because already nonsense is happening. Aaron Rodgers throwing picks. Russell Wilson throwing picks. Justin Fields stubbing his toe, hurting his toe. Man chimes in. Rip Hogan. Yeah. Aha. That's right. Put on it. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Listen, I'm just going to leave it there. On a day like today, there's no collared shirt. I'm sorry, there can't be. And it's going to be 90 something degrees tomorrow. So guess what? Prepare for the tea as well. I went to BCC campus in Pemberton to watch What? De facto. I went to BCC campus in Pemberton to watch WrestleMania on closed circuit TV. Hulk put wrestling and sports entertainment on the map. Yes, Balboa Philly 1. Thanks for checking in. Yes, he did. He launched WWF into the stratosphere. He did. It's 4:05. Joey B says Russell Wilson just threw another pick six. Yeah, I'm telling you right now. We'll get into that a little bit. Lloyd Van's going to join us in 5 o'clock hour. Joey B says, was fortunate enough to see Hulk Hogan in person a few times. WWF days at Meadowlands Arena, Madison Square Garden with my father. Rest in peace. Wow, that's pretty good. I remember that when Hogan beat the Iron Sheik. Yeah, 84. My man Duncan Dad does a great job on SR 102. 9FM The Game. Yeah, brother, what you gonna do? Exactly. You can't appreciate it. Like, we all grew up in those times, man. WWF in the 80s and the 90s, some of those greatest entertainers ever. Yes. And you know the beauty of that? You know the beauty of the main event, the Saturday night main event. Now, we're going to a time where if you missed it, you were screwed. If you fell asleep, You were screwed. If you got punished and you were upstairs in your room and it was 8 o'clock at night and kids were playing in your friggin' driveway basketball, but your father decides, you know what, you're punished, no TV, raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. You were screwed. You were screwed. You were absolutely, oh, here you go, the same era of the corporation. So now we have a timeline of when the corp started, which is always a very good thing. But if you missed out, you missed out. And that's not good. That's not good at all. Yes, NWO, and yes, I do remember he was that bad guy in the 70s. And again, but the original to me, I still think that was such a. It's like four of all those years with Green Bay. Forget about the Jets, and then playing with Minnesota. That's like a turn heel, right? Or a heel turn, I should say. It's like, um, equate it. Take a great Boston Red Sox or Yankee and then flipping teams like Damon with the Red Sox and then he goes to the Yankees. Like, I know it's kind of apples and oranges, but you kind of know where I'm going with that. Best villain, Roddy Piper in WWF was a legend. Definitely great villain. Cena I think is easy. I think Cena's easy to say that. I do, but it's different, man. You villains are good, but follow where I'm going with this and equate it to any sports figure or again, sports athlete, right? The fact that it was such a surprising move growing up, you're like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Q can use the Death Star Mike to knock out someone in a battle royale at the Philly Spectrum 88. Death Star Mike stays. It stays. Solid SI of Hogan. Thank you. Joey says 125 for the SI mag. There's a $1.95. What the hell's going on? I might have to get a like Four Eyes is a sponsor with my friggin' vision in my eyes. $2. There you go. Balboa Philly. Johnny on the spot. That's a good call. That is a very good pull right there. I mean, Bunker taking a shot at the corporation. That's unacceptable. I mean, really, that's unacceptable. T.O. going to the Cowboys was a good NFL heel turn. Yeah, it was. It really was. You had, I mean, do you remember though, the original run, like I said, the original run, it basically it slit the time slot where they were doing Saturday Night Live reruns. So like 85, 86, it ran for about 6 or 7 years. But that's what made it so unique. And I remember the SummerSlam, because those were pay-per-views. I think it's like 88, 89, 90. I still laugh to this day. I had to pull it up. So I would maintain two of the greatest moments, well, for me in pro wrestling history, and a lot of my buddies are much more diehard. I mean, I enjoyed it, but some of these guys are, I mean, they got belts. They're grown men with belts, fanatical. I would say when it was Hogan, and it wasn't like the battle royale. It wasn't, but it was like a tag team match. And if you guys remember when he fought Zeus, and I think that was like the I don't know if it was, I don't think it was no holds barred, right? Because Hogan, and I think Brutus Beefcake. You know what? It might have been that Hogan and Brutus defeated Randy Savage and Zeus. That was like the script. They scripted it up, and only Vince McMahon knew. But I still laugh to this day because Zeus, Tommy Lister Jr. kind of had, when you look at his eyes. I'm not going to say they were cross-eyed, so to speak, but I remember like the great call was from Jesse the Body. He's like, "Oh, he's going for the eyes, and it doesn't do anything." And then ultimately the fact that Hogan literally slammed Andre the Giant is still to this day unbelievable. Unbelievable. I did. Joey, it's funny you mentioned that because I don't know why this came across Miss Elizabeth, by the way. I don't know why this came across my feed on social, but now I'm starting to get all the old 1980 reels of when they used to do all those fitness shows on ESPN. The body shaping ones. And I'm like, wait a second, are you kidding me? Oh, all right. Let me see what we have going on over here. Oh, that's too funny. All right, 20 past the 4 o'clock hour. We will definitely get into some sports on this Thursday. I mentioned Lloyd Vann's going to join me in the 5 o'clock hour. Star chimes, and that's an unbelievable pull. SIQ, excellent condition. Nick and Wallingford Q, you got to praise that sucker. I mean, it's probably 25, $30. Remember, whatever, anything you put online or anything really in life, I mean, it could be, what did Leo say in Wolf of Wall Street, right? Sell me this pen. It's what you choose to pay for it. It's sentiment. It's sentiment. And so if you go on eBay right now, I guarantee you people are trying to hawk there. I'll do it right now while we're on the air. Why not? So we got Hulk Hogan. We got 1985 SI. I know this is good radio and content right now. Let's see. I guarantee you it's like a trending. Here you go. It's going anywhere from, I mean, one guy has it for $1.50. Another guy has it for $35. Another jabroni thinks he's going to get $490, and he might. He might get $499. I mean, he's got it custom graded at an 8.5, but again, that's kind of subjective. I mean, if it's like mint, and mine's in decent condition for 40 years old, but I like it for sentiment. How much you pay in fire insurance for that? So that's a very good question. I had to. That is a great question. So I have a display case, and I have cards from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're in very good condition. And I've always kept them in areas where it's not humid or humidity. You don't do the attic crap. You don't do any of that. So the display case, I actually covered up with a couple army blankets, and I keep it in a secure location. But other cards, yes, there are other cards that I have that I've taken and I've gotten insured, but I don't keep them in the house. I don't do that. I have, and you're talking about unwrapped stuff too. I mean, packs from like the early 1980s, unopened Tops, unopened Fleer, unopened Donruss, Bowman boxes. Do you remember Skybox? Like cases and cases of Skybox. Remember the NBA Skybox back in the day? Right? I think it was 89, 90. Score, first set, 88, pristine condition. All the Tops. Same thing with the NFL. The hockey, not so much. But the beauty is, even with baseball or the memorabilia or the baseball cards, it's cynical. So, like as Balboa 50 Philly 1 says, which by the way, that's a great handle, my friend. Any Hulk memorabilia just shot up. Yeah, but it's for what people are willing to pay for it at the end of the day, because a sucker is born every day. But there might be a father out there listening, and his kid is a big Hulk Hogan fan. So he might turn around and spend $150 on a magazine, or the towels or the t-shirts or the headbands. But that's what happens when someone passes away. I mean, if you watch when athletes pass away, the first thing somebody does, they go right online and they're seeing right away, oh man, what's this worth? What's this worth? What's this worth? Oh, I can get this for this. I can get this for this. Oh man, you know what? Ernie Banks passed away January 23rd, 2015. Let me see what an Ernie Banks 1956 card is going for. 56 Tops in pristine condition, which is one of the cards I have, which is also in very good condition. It's like a 9.3. But on eBay, you look at that card, it'll be anywhere from $170, $170 to probably $6,000. It's just what somebody is willing to pay for it. That's all. Because there's there's sentiment with certain things. There really is. And there's absolutely no way. I There's a reason I will not keep my stuff in a bunker or in the bunker. I can't do it because I'm telling you right now, that bunker is not secure. It's not, and I'm not going to do it. I would be foolish. I would be setting myself up for a loss of livelihood, loss of the memorabilia. Yep. Now, what's interesting too is so when Skybox came out, 91, 89, 90, or 90, 91, the Jordan card, which is right on the friggin' cover of the box. Now, what makes the ones that I have very unique is that they are unopened. They are still in original, like plastic wrapping. And I already know what's inside of them. So there's, again, now you're talking what? That's hanging on to those for 25, 30 something odd years. So to Monday Marcus's comment, Q, I can't believe you have that many Sports Illustrated. It's more of a not hoarding because I keep everything in organized and pristine condition. It's just I loved them. Now I made the mistake when I went to college. I decided to take some of them and start decorating my friggin' wall with the covers, which was, I can tell you right now, not the most prudent of things to do. Back in the day, you go in the dorms and you take the covers off, and I would plaster them all over. I had my Starks Duncan poster. I had I mean, I'm dating myself now, but I would have everything with masking tape. So, it's kind of hard to kind of pull them away a little bit, but there are certain SIs that I still have that are in a separate undisclosed location. Now, it was funny too because I was telling you guys this. So back in the day, like really, really a long time ago, there was a substantial amount of wrestling in the 80s in White Plains. And that's where I was born, grew up. And White Plains had the venue, I think it was like the Coliseum, like nightclub. But when my father was a cop up in New York, there were bars around that area. So him and his partner would go to these bars, and a lot of the wrestlers hung out. And he would always tell this story. They would always tell the story of how, one night Andre the Giant walks in, and Andre the Giant sits down, right? Or Andre the Giant was the table. And Andre the Giant proceeded to order. Now, this is at like 7, 8 o'clock at night. 25 fried eggs, about 15 pitchers of beer, and about 3 pounds of bacon. And I remember, when my father was telling me the story, I was like, well, how many people were there? And my father was just laughing. He goes, it was probably 5 of us, 6 of us. Like, he ate. That's how much Andre the Giant ate. I mean, think about that for a minute. Think about how big that man was. What was he, 7'4"? 7'3", 7'4"? I mean, can you imagine 26 fried eggs? 26 fried eggs and 2 pounds of bacon? I mean, on your best day, if you went drive-through, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, you went drive-through on your best day, you think you can probably scarf down 7, 8 McDonald's cheeseburgers on your best day in your prime, where you know what, you're not worried about what you're shoving inside you, what you're shoving in your body. I would say maybe you can get away with a pizza or two, maybe 6, 7, 8 cheeseburgers, maybe a large fries. If you got the shakedown, more power to you. If you were working out back in the day, you got that metabolism going, that's great. 20 something years old, 17, 18, 19 year, 20, whatever, because of metabolism, you got metabolism. You got a fast metabolism. You don't have to worry about driving now on 30 or 295 or the Parkway or Expressway, see McDonald's and just glancing over and looking and gaining 10 pounds. Can you imagine 25 fried eggs? I don't even know if there was bread involved. I just don't know. I don't know if there was bread involved, but 25 fried eggs, bacon, a couple pounds, and about 20 pitchers. De facto, Took your Randall Cunningham poster to college. Now, was that your 1988 Randall Cunningham poster? Right? What was that? What did they call? What was that poster? What was he? The Ultimate Weapon. Remember that SI? That SI, that Sports Illustrated with Randall Cunningham. I think it was the Ultimate Weapon, right? Back in the day. Yeah, I've got that SI as well. I've got that Sports Illustrated. I mean, you guys probably don't even remember. There was a. It only lasted. It was like not the Sporting News, but it was like back in the early 90s. It only lasted. There was like a cup of coffee for the magazine, but I still have all those in pristine condition as well. Still have all those. O chimes in Glasgow. Q, I remember you were talking about your cards probably about 15, 20 years ago. Have you opened any boxes since? Nope. I still haven't. I mean, maybe one day I will, but yeah, it's all neatly organized. That's the way I like it. All right, 31 past 4 o'clock hour. Good stuff with the comments. We will get into a lot of NFL today because already if you're a Jet fan, typical Jets. You can't even get out of training camp day one without something going on. Also, Lloyd Vance and I are going to kind of break down 4 or 5 sneaky, underrated offseason moves, offseason additions and or subtractions. So we'll dive into that. You got some baseball we want to mix in as well. But of course, you guys out there, 31 past 4 o'clock hour, cranking up on the Thursday edition of Middays with Q. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Keep the comments coming. Quick time out. We'll see you on the other side.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with booze and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, 4:34 on a Thursday edition Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here. Don't forget, subscribe to my YouTube channel as well at Rich Quiñones. You can follow me along. Pretty easy on multiple platforms. Of course, IG. We are Facebook Live and X, as we like to say. And let me just tell you guys how to do that as well. And also, our picks later on will be from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. we'll put that promo code in there for you guys to get involved into that discussion as well, or take advantage of the promo code. Let's see what you guys have to say out on this Thursday. We want to get into some NFL. Nick and Wildford, Q, very impressed how you're ripping off some of those wrestlers from the 80s. You remember the Tony Guerrera, Killer Kowalski? Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think Bruno Sammartino pretty much kind of, if you go back, Bruno Sammartino was like that stepping stone, right? Because he wrestled a boatload of times in Madison Square Garden. And then Andre the Giant was that big figure mid to late. You had Terry Funk, right? Billy Graham. Dusty Rhodes, right? And then everything just kind of opened up, and you always had great characters. And listen, everyone's going to do their list today. I was always about the guys that just had the personalities and the characters, man. Those were the guys that I gravitated to. I mean, Ricky the Dragon, right? Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, one of my all-time favorites. Loved him. West Point guy, New York guy. Loved Ricky. JYD, Junkyard Dog. Tito Santana. I mean, how do you not like Tito Santana? Right? Jimmy, Superfly Snuka. That was my guy as well. Because they were just the charisma. That's why you watched. Even as you got a little older and you knew it was scripted and you knew it wasn't real, you just watched because they were entertaining us. And that is all that matters ultimately, right? How about today in the NFL? If you are a Jet fan, now I don't want you to get too worried. Not good though. Justin Fields hurting his toe. I mean, you can't make this up. Suffered a dislocated toe. Now, he's lucky. The Jets are like, because he avoided serious injury. But you see that on X right away. Justin Fields, lower leg injury, carted off the practice field. Right away, you think the worst. So it's like, hell, Aaron Rodgers comes over, has 4 offensive snaps 2 years ago and tears his Achilles on a non-contact play, right? You look at Justin Fields. I hope it's really nothing serious. I mean, they're saying he should be ready for week 1, which is good against Pittsburgh. And then conversely, see Aaron Rodgers struggling a little bit today with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, those two teams meet respectively in week 1. I saw Caleb Williams with a couple bad picks, but that's training camp. It really is. That is just training camp. Like, all these beat guys are going to post a ton of videos. And they're going to push their narrative. Oh, Williams looks like he's in top form. I can't believe that, Pittsburgh went out and signed Aaron Rodgers. Oh my God, the Giants made a mistake with Russell Wilson. But they're not going to show you the other videos where, say Russell Wilson is marinating a little bit on 7-on-7 and going, 6 of 7 for 63 yards and a touchdown late. They're not going to do that. I don't get too enamored again, too crazy with that kind of stuff. I don't. Savage versus Steamboat. WrestleMania 3. Ooh, that's a good pull. Is WrestleMania 3 the greatest WrestleMania of all time? Pardon me. Was it Pontiac Silverdome, right? 12 matches, and all of them were just absolutely just white knucklers, as we like to say. I think you can make a case that WrestleMania 3 was the greatest WrestleMania ever. Because in the main event, what happened? Right? You had the WWF World Heavyweight Champ, the Hulkster, taking on who? Andre the Giant. And he body slammed him. Apparently, like, he tore his labrum and all this other stuff. I think maybe that might be the greatest WrestleMania ever. And yes, to Michael's point, Savage versus Steamboat, I know, like, all these outlets 30-something odd years ago, they pitted, I think it was Pro Wrestling Illustrated pitted that fight that match was one of the greatest matches in professional wrestling. Yeah, that's an excellent pull right there. Excellent. I always liked Atlantic City native King Kong Bundy as a villain. There you go. Per usual, Eagles winning in practice. Are they? I can't even. I can't even if we're start to get into the Eagles with the practice stuff. I was getting hammered yesterday because I'm talking about the Eagles and this whole let's just throw away the defending champ card, right? Oh, you know what the hell you're talking about. You're an idiot. You're a loser. You're a clown. Well, talking out of you. You know what? Well, why are they doing it? Like, if you're the Super Bowl champ, don't you want to embrace that? That's the only thing I was saying yesterday. If I'm the Super Bowl champ, I want people to know that I know you're trying to gun for me. You're trying to knock me off my perch. And I'll say this with the Philadelphia Eagles, here's your one concern. If you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan, here's your one concern. You win a Super Bowl. You win a Super Bowl in decisive fashion. Now, what are you going to do for an encore? So maybe you guys believe the reason that some of these players are coming out and saying, we don't care about the defending champ label, the defending champ moniker, because maybe if they start to talk about that, the narrative will be they're getting a little cocky. They're getting a little cocky. Just settle down a little bit. It's one of the reasons that some of the coaching staff has already kind of said pump the brakes on the hype. What will knock the Eagles off? What will hurt the Eagles this season? Okay. And I don't care de facto if you've seen video of every Giants quarterback throwing pick sixes. It's friggin' July and you're already breaking them. You're already breaking them. I don't want to hear that. I think what will hurt the Eagles, if anything prevents them from getting back to the Super Bowl and defending the crown, it will be because they got too fat in the offseason. Too fat. And what I mean is you lost your edge. You lost your edge. And that happens sometimes with Super Bowl winning teams. It is very hard to get back to the Super Bowl when you lose it. It's extremely hard. I believe it's harder to get back after you win it. And I don't think the road will be paved as easy as some of you guys think it is. I still maintain Washington is going to push the Eagles. Get on me. I don't care. I don't care. Do you understand week to week, you have to go out and you have to play at such a high level every single solitary week now? Because if you don't, you're going to lose. And one loss becomes two becomes three. Then you got a losing streak. Then all of a sudden, well, it was a hell of a run last year. They get a pass this year. Or maybe the quarterback gets a little nicked up, shut him down for a couple weeks. Maybe Saquon gets a little nicked up. You know what? We're going to shut him down. That offensive line has some question marks. Maybe the corners is secondary. Maybe they haven't come into their own and they're getting beat early on in the season. What I'm saying is, at this moment, objectively and being fair, they are the team to beat in the NFL because they are the defending Super Bowl champs, period. This is not a reverse mush. This is not, Q psychology. I'm not doing any of that. They are the best team in the NFL before the season starts on Thursday night when they kick off the season against the Dallas Cowboys, because they are the team that won last. They're the last team standing, and they did it in impressive fashion. Nobody's taking that away from them. Nobody is. But when you win a Super Bowl, you lose players. You got to make up for that. When you win a Super Bowl, the mountain is already, you've climbed the mountain. You've gotten to the top. And again, maybe you just lose a little bit of that edge. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not putting it in the juju space, in the juju world. That's not what I'm it's not what I'm saying. But I also know how hard it is. I mean, I go back. That first Super Bowl the Giants won with Eli and Coughlin, they were the best team in 2008. They were hands down the best team in the NFL. They got humbled on Monday Night Football against Cleveland, and then they ripped off 8 straight wins, and then Plaxico shot himself, and the season was derailed. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I'm saying is something can happen during a season that can derail your chances. So before Eagles fans start to come out and get all friggin' cocky with me on a Thursday in friggin' July and mock me because the giant quarterbacks are throwing picks, you're gonna throw that out at me at July 24th, especially on the day the Hulkster just passed away. You're gonna throw that nonsense. I already know what I have with my team and my quarterbacks. You're setting yourself up for some bad karma, brother. You are setting yourself up for some bad karma. Why are you triggering me, Q, on this horrible day? The Commanders don't have a good roster as of 7/24/25. Okay. Because you're basing it on one wide receiver not being there. Early predictions, are you taking the Eagles, KC, or the field to win the Super Bowl? I haven't made up my mind yet, Miguel. I have not made up my mind yet, Michael. I haven't. I think the Eagles, the betting favorite to come out of the NFC, but I also think there's other teams that are going to push them. And when I say push, I'm not saying they're going to beat them. And when I say push, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, they're going to fall by the wayside. I'm not saying that. And by the way, you can throw all your giant nonsense, but I saw that Abdul Carter looks like a friggin' beast. So don't give me, well, it's only training camp. You can't touch the quarterback. Well, then guess what? No one cares if there's a couple turnovers de facto with your nonsense with that. That's just garbage. You're coming at me today. And let me get to more comments on the other side. 446 will advance at 5:05. Keep it locked in. Thursday edition, Middays with Q.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with booze and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
All right, 448. We'll take up to 6 o'clock. I saw that Vic Fangio basically said, hey, relax, pump the brakes. And again, I don't go crazy over training camp or preseason. Where I get aggravated is if, let's say, the Giants, for instance, if you're not going to give Russell Wilson meaningful snaps in the preseason, because I believe you have to have a little bit of some momentum going in the regular season. I don't care who throws a pick. I don't care if I don't care if Jalen Hurts throws pick sixes in friggin' July. I don't. That's you being an extremely sensitive fan. That's all that is. And I'm sorry if you're triggered, but that's the truth. You're just being uberly sensitive, way too sensitive right now. I mean, this team just won the Super Bowl. Let it marinate for a second as we're in July. You want to turn the page, turn the page. But I'm cautioning Eagles fans, as good as this team is, you need to pump the brakes first. Get through the season, get to the playoffs, have an opportunity to get home field. Yes, be ecstatic, be excited, be giddy. Think you're going to open up Thursday night at home against Dallas and you're going to crush the Cowboys. Then what if you come back and you play poorly on the road against Kansas City? You stub your toe against the Rams and maybe lose to the Bucs. Now all of a sudden you're a defending champ that's 1-3 out of the gate. You have to play the game. You don't win in July. Just ask the Dallas Cowboys. You don't win championships in July and August, but you can lose them. Do you understand mentally? If you're a team that you're trying to get over the hump and it's taken you a couple years, or you got to the mountaintop and then you got knocked off it quickly, you couldn't even look at the view, i.e., the Eagles a couple years ago against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Then you struggle again to get back to the playoffs. And I shouldn't say struggle because they were 10-1, but you know what I'm saying. It's a long season. You don't even show up against the Bucs. So now you're a team that went to the Super Bowl, couldn't get back to the Super Bowl, and you lost in the wild card game. Now you have to get yourself up mentally again. And of course, it doesn't hurt that you acquire Saquon Barkley and he goes nuts. It doesn't hurt that Jalen Hurts started to evolve as a quarterback. You've got weapons, great tight ends. Great wide receivers, decent tight ends, great offensive line, solid defense. You knew they were going to win games last year. You knew they were. And then all of a sudden, they really hit their stride late in the season, and they ran roughshod through the playoffs. The Rams gave them their stiffest test in the snow, and Kansas City was a no-show. So now, you've gotten to the mountaintop. You've looked out. You've seen the sunset. You've seen the sunrise. You've enjoyed it. Now there's the potential of that letdown. And the special teams, the teams that we sit there and say they're dynasties, they do things that other teams can't. And a lot of it has to do with their mental toughness and fortitude. I mean, here's a perfect example. And I'll use this for you guys. And I think some will understand exactly what I'm saying. And some of you guys might not understand. Let's say you're in high school and you're struggling in high school and you're not sure if you're going to go to college. Maybe you go to JUCO, maybe you can only afford it, maybe you're going to transfer, but you were a piss poor student in high school. You tried, but you were a bad student. But you finally graduated high school. Now all of a sudden, okay, well, hold on a second. I want to go to college. I want to get a job, man. Maybe I want to be a mechanic, right? Maybe I want to go to law school. Maybe I want to be a teacher. Maybe I want to be a cop. Maybe I want to go work in a store and be a manager, work in sales, whatever. So now you're scratching and clawing and you're fighting your way through JUCO, and then you transfer. Maybe you go to that 4-year institution, and it's hard. It is hard for the guys that have gone through it, the guys and the girls, right? It's hard to get acclimated to college life. You're away from home. You're trying to make new friends. You got to study. You feel the pressures of doing certain things maybe you shouldn't do. You want to stay in line. You want to stay the course. And you're putting in your time. You're working. Maybe you're playing a sport. And then all of a sudden, hey, I got to get the grades. And you're doing everything you need to do, right? Get through freshman year. Get through your sophomore year. You're struggling junior, but I can fight through. I can get through. You get through, junior, and now you're a senior. And you got a semester or two to graduate. And you start to reflect. You start to think back the struggle in high school. The struggle maybe before you went to college. The struggle maybe if you spent a year or two in JUCO. The struggle to get into a university or a college, right? And you're right there. And then finally, the day comes. You get your passing grade, you walk up there, and what do they give you? They give you a little plastic pipe that's supposed to be the diploma, right? And there's a moment where all of us have gone through it. And you'd be kidding yourself. You'd be lying to yourself if you said you didn't. Yes, there's the joy, the jubilation, friends and family. But then maybe you go back to your dorm room, or maybe you're packing up and you say goodbye and you get in your car and you kind of look and you're like, my college career is over. And then you say to yourself, what the hell am I going to do now? You have a letdown. It's like an emotional roller coaster. You've hit the highest of highs, because I think graduating high school and graduating college are big things. Those are milestones in a person's life. They are. They are milestones in a person's life. And I'm telling you, If you get that, if you graduate high school, you graduate college, those are great things. You share those with your family and your friends, but then there's that letdown. Uh-oh, now I got to get a job. I got to keep this up emotionally. I got to keep this pace up. Now take it to the world of sports. Take it to the world of sports right now. Now I get it. They're grown men. They're millionaires. They make substantial amount of money, but it's very hard sometimes once you've reached that pinnacle, that point, to sit there and say, I've got enough drive and ambition to get back to that point. Sometimes it's just a letdown. It's like, what now? What is there left to do? So when teams win championships, a lot of times, some of them don't even get back to the playoffs. Few do. And if they do, out of those few, even fewer maybe have an opportunity to get back to their championship rounds and or the Super Bowl or, NBA Finals, World Series. And if they win it again and back to back, that is special. It's rare. It's extremely special. It's so hard to do. So again, I that's my comp, and you guys might think it's apples and oranges. I don't believe it is. Matty Ice in Delaware, Q, that's a perfect analogy. Once I graduated college, I said to myself, what the hell am I going to do now? Look for a job, go back home, travel a little bit. The letdown was there. That's all I'm saying. So you win the Super Bowl, and it's almost like anticlimactic, is it not? Like, okay, now what? What did we lift all that weight for? Would we put in all that extra time studying? Would we do those extra miles, extra cardio, extra weights, extra time? Playing hurt, playing banged up, bad weather, on the road, doing what you need to do, all these sacrifices. Now you got to do it again. That's why I'm just any team that wins a championship. Yeah, it's very hard to get back. That's all I'm saying. What's going on, Vince? What's up, brother? That's all I'm saying. It's very hard to keep that level of intensity. It's different, like, a 10-round, 12-round title fight. You got the ebb and flow. You got a couple rounds, but that's all condensed in one fight. That guy's not going to go back fighting on Saturday and then fight on Sunday again and try to get back up again. Can't do it. It's physically impossible. The NFL is a war of attrition. And those teams that we've talked about, those dynasty teams, those great teams, whether it was, Vince's Steelers in the 70s, Madman's 49ers of the 80s, right? Or those Dallas teams in the 90s, or Matty Ice's teams, the Patriots. He's a Pats fan, in the 2000s. Do you know how special those teams had to be to win those Super Bowls and then, get back? It takes it's so much, man. It is so taxing on a player and their mind. It really is. I'm telling you, you ask any professional athlete or any ex-NFL player that won a Super Bowl and maybe got back there the next year, where they had a chance to get back there, God's green or grass, they will tell you it was so hard to get back there. It was so hard. I mean, I can't believe we got back there. I can't believe that's what makes, if you think about this, 86, the Giants waxed the 49ers. 87, the strike season, the 49ers come back and they lose a horrible game to Minnesota. Anthony Carter, such an underrated wide receiver, went off. 88, you ask any Niners fan, the Niners did not have a great team in 1988. They were not your typical 49er type of team. They weren't, 84, 85 Niners. But they got a measure of revenge on Minnesota. They waxed them. They beat the Bears, who were pretty much done with their little run. And they beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. Here you go. Champions of the world, 88. Now, let's run it back. And what did they do in 89? They dominated. They lost 2 games that year. They lost to the Rams. They lost to the Packers. They literally destroyed every team in their wake in the playoffs. Again, Minnesota, then the Rams, and then that Denver game. I remember watching that game. I'm like, this game is it's going to be out of hand. And if you remember that Super Bowl, I think the 49ers, I'm sorry, I think the Denver Broncos might have scored first or second. Maybe they were only down 7-3. And then the 49ers just unloaded on them. They unloaded on them. They scored 28, what was it? The next 30 something odd points and it being a 55-10. Do you understand the mental toughness and the talent and the fortitude and the drive that team had to have to win it in 88 and get back and win it again in 89? And now all these Eagles fans think it's a gimme that they're going to get back to the Super Bowl. Like, you guys need to pump the brakes. Anything can happen. God forbid. A quarterback can go down. Barkley can go down. Hurts can go down. He can have an off year. Brown can go down. The defense can crumble. It's so hard. Everything's got to hit. Everything's got to hit. This is not hating on them. This is not reverse mush. This is not bad. I'm just telling you. I'm speaking from experience as a fan. Yeah, the game was different in the 70s, but you ask any old school Steelers fan or any of those Steelers players from those squads, man, it's like, oh man, all right, now we got to get back up again. We have to it's harder, I think, and maybe you guys agree, maybe you don't. I think it's harder in this day and age, especially in the NFL, to win a Super Bowl, because when you win a Super Bowl, you know for a fact that the team that you won it with is not going to be the team that you're potentially going to win it again with. They're just too. Guys retire. Guys become free agents. They already have a ring. What's the next logical thing they want? Money, right? I got the ring. Let me try to cash in. Maybe I had a decent season. Maybe I had 15 sacks and I had a couple big sacks in the Super Bowl. I'm going to get a payday. Maybe I ran for over 2,000 yards, 1,500 yards. I caught, 100 balls. I had a big playoff game. I'm a free agent. I want to cash in. I want a ring. So you lose those players. Now you got to bring in other players. Now all of a sudden they have to buy in. They have to understand the culture. They have to be lock, step, and barrel with you. They do. Whether it's the running back, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a lineman, whether it's a linebacker, whether it's a corner, whether it's a free safety, it does not matter. We always talk about you heard Hank Poteet last week, the Patriot way, the Patriot way, the Patriot way. They brought in guys that knew from the get-go, this is what we're trying to do. This is the culture we have built. We're not going to deviate from that. If you're not going to be part of it, then you're not going to be part of the solution, and then you're going to be the problem, and you're not going to last. Now, for the most part, the Eagles have weeded out those players because now they've got the culture in place. They've got the players. They got the head coach, the coaching staff, and they're coming off a Super Bowl win. Now get yourself back there, right? Remotivate yourself. Embrace the defending champ moniker. That's all I'm saying. Embrace it, and also know that every team is going to be gunning for you. And it's just so hard to get back. And if they get back and they win it again, that is a special team. We should not undervalue repeat champions. I believe we sometimes say, yeah, they went back to back. It's a special animal, man. You got to be a different kind of bird to get to go back to back. To me, that's special. It's special. Now, obviously, back to back to back is a whole nother conversation. All right, 5 o'clock, straight up, 16 to book, 60 to play with. Lloyd's going to join us on the other side. A lot of comments coming in. Keep us locked in. I appreciate you guys as always. Still got a lot of Hulk Hogan comments coming in as well. Fantastic. Keep those coming in as well. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock, straight up, quick timeout. See you on the other side.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Our good friend Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us in his weekly spot. Does a great job. Host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 1029 FM. The Game. Give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. Before we get into the NFL, Ozzy Osbourne, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Chuck Mangione, and now Hulk Hogan. What's going on, Lloyd? I mean, Hulk Hogan passing away at 71.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like, wow, all your childhood stuff going away, man. And we always remember Hulk Hogan, ripping his shirt and I'm a real American and all that stuff. And that was when WWE or WWF, whatever it was called then, took off. He was the marquee guy. So yeah,
Now,
terrible loss.
I threw it out there, the greatest heel turn in sports history, wrestling history, right, was Hogan. But I was trying to, think about it from a, sports, if you will, because we know wrestling was entertaining. I was like, Favre going, was it Favre with the Packers? Forget the Jets, but then maybe Minnesota. Was it Marcus Allen, the Raiders, and then Kansas City? I mean, it's almost like Jordan, who played with the Bulls, and then obviously Washington turned around and played with Detroit. I can't, wasn't a Red Sox playing for the Yank, a Yank playing for the Red Sox. Somebody mentioned T.O., who did it a couple times. I don't know. Do you have one off the top of your head where you're like, I can't root for this guy anymore? He's going to the rivals. He's going to the bad guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I was trying to think of, uh, Cowboys that went from the Eagles. One is Harold Carmichael. A lot of people don't know that, but he ended his career as a Dallas Cowboy. So it's just
How
like,
about Dion?
yeah, he bounced around a lot. And I remember that the Niners signed him specifically to beat,
That's right.
to win the title. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To
Yeah.
win, to beat the Cowboys, and they did that. So yeah, I think a lot times now, Q, money supersedes, so these guys go where the money is. They don't really have that loyalty as in the past.
So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. So we were talking uh, before you came on. It's very hard to get back to a Super Bowl, right? Win it back to back. And I mentioned that it's harder, I think, now in today's climate in the world of sports, especially where the money is so appealing. And it's kind of first and foremost, okay, I won a Super Bowl. Now I can go cash in as a free agent. Now I can really make some money, generational wealth. What is there left to do? And I kind of equate it to, all right, you go to high school, then you finally go to college, you've struggled, and then you hit graduation and you're driving home by yourself. You're a man, you packed up all your bags and you're ready to get home and you enjoyed the moment. And you think to yourself, oh man, you know, now you have a letdown. Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I did everything that I said I was going to do. And a couple guys have pointed out, maybe I'm being too philosophical or psychological about it, but you ask any player, they win a Super Bowl. Now I've got to ratchet it up the next season. Like, I've got to do everything. That first time you're so hungry for it, right? Get the extra work in film study, weights, sprints, cardio, hit the diet, hit the gym, get your reps in, play banged up, play hurt, get on a run, have monumental seasons, a la like a Saquon Barkley. Now I had to do that all over again to some capacity just to get back there and have a chance to win it. How tough is it?
Oh, it's extremely tough too to repeat in the National Football League because everything's different. Everything is so special right after you win the Super Bowl, but then you become the hunted and teams become complacent. You have the injuries. You have guys say, "Okay, I've got my ring now. Let me get paid somewhere else." And that group will never be together again. And I worked with a lot of guys in the past in NFL films, and you watch those NFL films where they talk about America's games, and the guys are like, oh, this was so special, and then they just couldn't get it back. And you think about the Patriots 03, 04, they were able to do it, and then there was that huge gap where teams just were not able to kind of repeat, and the Chiefs did it. But you saw all the weight that was so heavy on them trying to get that three-peat, which has never been done. So it's just a lot of expectations and just there's always going to be change around the National Football League.
If there was one, I guess you can say if there's one thing that would derail the Eagles season aside from injuries, would it be maybe having that fat cat syndrome where that edge is lost?
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about it all um, summer. You see the guys and they're in Sea Isle, they're partying, they're having that good old time, and they're on a Tonight Show, they're doing the banquet circuit, and yeah, they're getting their flowers, but you know, putting in the work in the off season, was it done? And we're going to find out that very quickly. We talked about earlier, they have a very tough schedule, and it's that complacency is hard, man. Like Mick said, you ain't been hungry since you won that title.
That's right. You did the worst thing to happen to you as a fighter. You got, what do you say, domesticated, right?
Right.
He lost. You ain't. Yeah, you're right. You lost that edge. I don't even know. He was making up some words as he went along. I still listen. I know from a betting standpoint, they've got the short odds. Obviously, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. The lines are there. I think it's going to be tough, which kind of leads me to this. We'll get into the news of the day, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about, I guess you can say, under the radar, sneaky offseason moves by some of these teams. But if you're a Jet fan, you probably went to go grab, maybe a quick shot and a smoke when you see that Justin Fields goes down with a lower leg injury. Now they're just saying it is a toe injury, dislocated his toe, and he should be day by day. But man, like all of us, but man, you hear that and you're like, oh, you got to be kidding, man. I mean, not as bad as what's going on in Miami with their cornerback that they just lost to a torn ACL, which we'll get into. But man, if you're a Jets fan, you're probably thinking you can't be serious with this, right? First day of training camp.
Yeah, the downtrodden Jets, and it's always like they just haven't done anything since Joe Namath won that Super Bowl all those years ago. And are they a snake bitten franchise? And you know, if it's only a dislocated toe and maybe he can come back before the start of the season, but it just throws a monkey wrench in the whole thing. And you think about Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be their saver a couple years ago. 4 snaps in, he gets hurt. So it's just like, wow, what can go wrong will for the Jets. And everybody was thought that Justin Fields comeback player type situation this
Yeah.
year, and hopefully they get an MRI and it's not too bad and he's able to come back. But yeah, I heard from a couple of my Jets people just texting me like, "Are you bleeping kidding me?"
Not good. And then we saw sticking in the AFC East, Dolphins cornerback Artie Burns, torn ACL. That's horrible, man. He's going to miss the entire 2025 season, tears ACL on the team's first day of training camp. That's just any sign of 1 year deal.
Yeah, it's they're trying to fix that defense, and Fangio leaves and he goes to the Eagles, wins a Super Bowl, and just something's been amiss with that defensive
Yeah.
group. Holland went to
Yep.
the Giants, and it's just like, all right, what are they going to do? They trade Ramsey. They do have Minka Fitzpatrick coming back over from the Steelers, but um, yeah, that's another blow to a team. And we talked about it. What were they last year? 8, 9, something like that. And he's on hot seat. Mike McDaniel's on a hot seat. Stephen Ross is an owner that's getting older, and he's got high expectations. And then you start saying, okay, did Chris Greer, the GM, do enough in the draft? And will McDaniel be back? So that's a tough blow, and we're going to see how that turns out for him.
We talked a lot about the Browns the other day in their quarterback room / quarterback competition. Their GM, Andrew Berry, said, you know what? Yeah, we can keep 4 quarterbacks on a 53-man roster. He said, quote, we largely looked at the last 5 spots of a roster as more developmental spots, and that can come from any position. And then he went on to say, I also think with the roster flexibility nowadays, especially with the elevations that you're able to have on the practice squad, there's just more flexibility in terms of how to build your 48-man game day roster where it's maybe not as quite as restrictive as in the past. Now, we already documented it. Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, Sanders. I mean, Pickett's getting a lot of reps and a lot of snaps, man. And what's more likely to happen if they only keep 3 quarterbacks and Pickett's the starter, the day one starter, week one starter for Cleveland, what is more likely to happen? They keep Pickett, Flacco, and Sanders, Pickett, Sanders, and Gabriel, or Pickett, Gabriel, and Flacco. Basically, like you're either going to stick with the old man and one of the rooks, or you're going to stick with the two rookies and cut the old man. Which is more likely to happen?
Yeah, Q, and I'll go to that first comment when he was saying we could keep four quarterbacks. That's crazy. A lot of teams nowadays are only going with two quarterbacks on an active 53 roster, and then maybe somebody on the practice squad. Spots are just so valuable, especially on game day. You need a guy that's going to be able to play special teams and do a lot of other things. That's why they have that extra running back, the extra DB out there. So in terms of uh, what you laid out, I could see it happening where, Pickett is clearly the guy that they want to start. So
Yep. Yep.
he's going to be sticking around. They drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders for a reason. They're going to keep them around there. They're the future. I would think the odd man out would be Joe Flacco. In terms of maybe they would cut him, maybe they would trade him, look for, we just saw the injury there with the Jets. Maybe something else happens around the league. They trade him. He's a veteran presence. And a lot of teams would say, okay, bring him in. He's like a player's coach. We saw Josh McCown kind of bounce around the NFL at the end of his career. Now he's a quarterback's coach. So um, maybe that'd be the type of situation for Flacco. But yeah, it's just very odd. And it just shows they don't have a plan when you say that. Oh, we could keep four quarterbacks. Well, why would you do that? Because um, the other positions are so valuable. Think about the receiver position. They only have Jerry Judy, and they don't have much else there. Deontay Johnson, and you need that extra receiver to be a gunner or something like that.
Do you read too much into or not enough into it? If Gabriel, who is a third round pick, Lloyd, is running the second team offense, Sanders is a fifth round pick. So he's leading the third team offense. Flacco, who's been around for almost 20 years, did not even receive any 11 on 11 reps. So you almost think if Pickett's a guy, you have to see. I believe if Pickett's the guy, I hate saying this because I thought about it when I got off the air yesterday. Stefanski can't afford to lose games. So, like, wouldn't you go with the devil you know as opposed to the devil you don't know? That means start Joe Flacco.
You would think he'd be in desperation mode. Jimmy Haslam, the owner there, he really needs to look at the situation, and they've just underachieved for so many years. Yes, Flacco got him surprisingly in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but for the most part, they've just kind of struggled. And Stefanski's got to be feeling the heat. I don't care, you know, the face he's putting out there in the public. This team is underachieved. They haven't done well in the draft, and expectations are in that division are pretty tough. So
Which makes
yeah,
me believe that you want to go with
he
the
should.
proven veteran. And then if you want to keep one of the kids, if you want to keep, I mean, I know this is going to rub people the wrong way, but is there a possibility Sanders gets cut?
If they cut him, they'll try to sneak him through to the practice squad. But I think exposing him out there, another team will say, "All right, now we're going to try and grab him." And the crazy thing is, his jersey's the number one selling jersey in the NFL at this time. So
Right.
I, I think they'll keep the two young guys and then go from there. But I think they're really going to struggle as a team. You're looking at less than 5 wins, in my opinion, with this team.
Well, you got the Titans now that need a backup quarterback, as we talked about a little bit. So that's a team that, I mean, at least the Browns can kind of dangle one of these guys. I don't understand for the life of me what they see in Pickett. I just, am I missing something here?
No, you're not. And we always talk about this. In 2 years of starting as a Steeler, 13 touchdowns, I believe 13 interceptions, and he just he was the only quarterback taken that year in the first round when he was a rookie, and he was a reach then, and he's just kind of underachieved. Even going back to his days at Pitt, it looks the part, but he's just not getting it done. Now, last year, maybe he learned something as a backup for the Eagles, win a Super Bowl ring, but I doubt it. I think once the real games start, you're going to see the same old Kenny Pickett, and he makes mistakes. He runs too early, too often, and other times he holds the ball too long and takes sacks. So he's just very inconsistent. I don't know what they're doing there in Cleveland.
Mac chiming in. Q, always loving the NFL talk with Lloyd. How about this? Kenny Pickett's 25 career starts, Q. 12 starts with 0 touchdowns, one game ever with 2 touchdowns, 79 career passing rating. Thank you for not gaslighting Browns fans. We're not going to. We're not. I mean, that's, it's just, I have no idea what the hell they're doing. All right. So we know some teams made some, I guess you can say, sneaky under the radar type of moves, whether it's free agent signings, acquisitions, trades. I'm going to give you mine first, and I guarantee it's probably you have it on your list because I've raved about it before. Well, do you have any move the Denver Broncos made?
No, I kind
Okay.
of, but I think they're doing a good job there with George Payton, the general manager, and Sean
Well,
Payton. That they've
yeah,
cleaned some things up.
yeah. Okay, good because I didn't want to steal your thunder on it. I think one of the underrated moves was Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I like that one, and you know, I know I had a fantasy football guy on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about from that perspective. He's going to get a lot of targets, and you have Mims over the top, you have
Yep.
Courtland Sutton there, and then he comes in there, and I think he's a lot healthier. They're going to move him out in space. He's not more of an inline tight end, so they're moving him out in space, and he's be like a big receiver. So Q, I think he's going to have a pretty good season. Bo Nix was very accurate last season.
I mean, I always liked him. He just, he dropped too many balls. I mean, he's come down a little slimmed down. He's kind of near that. I think he's already going to be, uh, I want to say 30. I mean, Ingram's been in the league now uh, for a little bit, but he gives Bo Nix a safety valve, right? You have to have a tight end that you can rely on and that you can trust. And I'll say this about Ingram: he's worked on his blocking over the last several years. And listen, he's 30 years old, man. I mean, he had some nice season with the Giants. He came on with Jacksonville. He was a little banged up. But if they can run the football and open things up, you'll get him in the seam. I mean, I think about this. There are tight ends that are 30, 31, 32, aside from the Kelseys and say the Kittles of the world, that hang around, and they become serviceable. Zach Ertz is kind of do that, what he did with Washington in 2024, right? So you got a veteran, you parlay that into a nice little guarantee, a multi-year contract extension, 2, 3 years. I think that's exactly what Ingram's playing for. I know he's kind of toiled between the Giants and, of course, the Jags. But again, man, you're going to a team that has a head coach that has won, a young quarterback, a team that also made the playoffs. I think he's in a very, I think he's in a good spot, is what I'm saying. Because now, look, I think Bo Nix is better than Lawrence, and I think Bo Nix is better than Daniel Jones, and that's who this kid had him throwing the football.
Yeah, I think this is a big move for them. And think about Sean Payton in his heyday, how good Jimmy Graham was, particularly in the red zone. So I think they're going to try to get the ball to Ingram in the red zone, make some plays there. And you're right. In Jacksonville, he started coming on and he got a little injured, but I think he can play pretty well for the Broncos. So it's going to be interesting.
Michael says we need to get me a Bo Nix jersey for NFL opening week, and that's we're not going to go that route. I do like the Broncos though. They, I get called too much juice on the Broncos, just like with Washington. All right, throw me a team that made a sneaky good move.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I looked at. And I don't know if it's sneaky good, but the Dallas Cowboys, they're trying to improve their running game. So a big thing is Zach Martin retired. So you wonder, like, okay, how's that going to affect them? They did draft Tyler Booker, coming in first round guy from Alabama. They're bringing over Javonte Williams from Denver, and then Miles Sanders. Can he reignite them? They only ran for about 1,700 yards last year, which was 27th ranked in the NFL, and only 4 yards per carry and 6 rushing touchdowns. So they're trying to reinvigorate that offensive line and the running game, and that'll help Dak, who's coming off that hamstring injury. So bringing in Booker and retooling that offensive line, I think is a big thing. They also signed Tyler Smith, gave him that nice extension. So Dallas trying to improve that running game this offseason.
What
Sneaky good move.
about the Rams going after? and getting Devontae Adams. I mean, he's an immediate upgrade over Cooper Cuff, right? I mean, and you got I always pronounce his name wrong, Nakua, right? So I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you can kind of isolate those one-on-one matchups, I think that fits perfectly in McVay's scheme.
yeah. Which Devontae Adams is coming there? Is he going to be
So
interested?
that's
Is he
fair.
going to be ready to play? He was with the Packers. He was just dynamic, and then he kind of looked lost from there. Even with the Raiders, and then last year with the Jets, he came on late because they were throwing the ball like every play. So Cooper Cup, the year they won the Super Bowl All World, he almost broke Calvin Johnson's regular season yardage record, and then he kind of fell off after his knee injuries. And a big thing is Devontae Adams is going to have to block because Sean McVay, he likes using those receivers in motion, and he's going to get his targets. So, but Puka's the number one guy there, and then Adams should feed off that. But Stafford, as long as he's healthy, he should have that good 1-2 punch at receiver.
Vince chimes in. Excuse me, Bo Nix is better than Trevor Lawrence. Are you high, sir? I'm not. I'm high on life, Vince. I'm
I
I'm high on life.
If you
I,
look at recency bias,
yeah.
Q, I would say, last season he was better than Trevor Lawrence. Bo Nix was efficient. He led his team to the playoffs, and that was a total surprise. And he's a rookie. He's ascending. And we're talking about Trevor Lawrence. Is he stuck in neutral? He just has not been a difference maker last couple seasons for Jaguars.
No, that's it. People are looking at Trevor Lawrence for what he did a couple years ago. Now, the other thing is you got to learn a new system, right? He's got to learn Liam Cohen's system.
Yeah, you hope Liam Cohen can fix him. He digressed underneath Doug Peterson. I heard that they weren't getting along, and the playbook wasn't to his liking. But there's some weapons there. He's Brian Thomas Jr. there, and then he's going to have Travis Hunter coming in. Um, but Lawrence just was not clicking with his guys, particularly Christian Kirk, who got injured, and you talk about Ingram there. He's kind of wasted at certain points, and uh, even at the running back position, ATN kind of just fizzled. So
Yeah, and by the way, I have gone on record saying I like Trevor Lawrence. I've gone on record. I've defended Trevor. I think I've defended him way too much, Trevor Lawrence. The reality is this: in his career, he's what 22-38. He went 3-14. You got to pass. He went 9-8, 8-8. Then he missed games. I mean, and again, you're talking about an injured quarterback, new system. This is not the kid that went 25-8 a couple years ago. So we always sit there. We're allowed to say, is this quarterback going to take the next step, second year, third year, fourth year? Well, hell, this kid's entering his fifth year. I think the kid has talent, but right now, coming off an injury, a lot of sporadic play, a lot of inconsistencies. You lose a couple weapons. You're learning a new offense. I'm going to wait it out before I sit there and say, yeah, let's stick them right back in there and top 10. Vince is a defender. Sunshine has been injured the past 2 years. You will see my boy Trevor in MVP talks late this season. Hey, sir, there are some people, there are sharps and odds makers that believe he's going to throw for over 5,000 yards a season. If he does, they damn well better win a division and make the playoffs, or it's smoke and mirrors. So right now, I like Lawrence. I do. But I mean, the blonde walks in, then the brunette. Bo Nix right now is the brunette. I wave at Lawrence, but I'm walking up to Bo Nix and, I'm talking to brunette. So it's like, I'm very high on Bo Nix. I am.
yeah, and hope springs to turn around in NFL. Everybody's excited about the new season, but the Heat's on there. They got rid of Trent Baalke, the general manager who architected the team, brought him in, and Peterson's gone, as I said, and it's a situation where the expectations are there for the Jaguars because let's face it, that division is there to be had. Houston won it last 2 years, I think, with 10 wins. So,
Division stinks.
and he's a guy who's a 5-star in high school. He played so well at Clemson. Everybody remembers him going for the national championship and being the number one overall pick. But, the days of him being on scholarship as a high draft pick are over. Now everybody's like, all right, it's do or die.
Yeah. One of the other teams I'm high on coffee, Vince, and life, Lloyd, is Arizona. And I do like the move for Josh Sweat because they need it to get a little more nastier. They needed more production off the edge. And now you've got a player, oh, by the way, who played under John Gannon in Philadelphia. He's long. He can move. He's got good footwork, speed to power. He can be a disruptor. He's built in counter moves. So now all of a sudden, I can kind of get offensive tackles, off their spot. I think this is a sneaky, really good signing by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and we talked about the Cardinals a lot after the draft because Gannon knew and his defensive coordinator Nick Rallis that they had to fix that defensive unit. They allowed 22.3 points per game, kind of middle of the road, but just not a lot of teeth. So they're bringing a lot of pieces to that defense. Bringing Kellis Campbell back, Dalvin Tomlinson coming to play the nose guard position, and then you talk about Sweat going to be that outside presence because they just didn't have a lot of pass rushers. They do still have Buda Baker there, who's played very well at a high level, but they need Sweat to come in there and cause some havoc, as well as Max Melton, who they drafted in the second round last season. So a lot of pieces there, but they got to bring it all come together. But yeah, Arizona is a team they're they're going to be dangerous. My son's always telling me about them, and their ascending squad, and he thinks they could challenge the Rams. But in that division, they're always going to beat each other up. But they were 3-3 last year in that division, but last season started to come together a little bit at the end, 3-2 in their last 5 games, and the pressure's going to be on Kyler as well as Gannon and that defense.
5:31 on a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game. Of course, you can follow him on X at Lloyd Vance. You can follow me at Rich Q on Q. Remember, these moves can be, free agent signings or trades. I'll throw it back to you. What's the next kind of sneaky move that you have?
Yeah, now this was real sneaky. The Dolphins, they signed Zach Wilson, hoping to get lightning in a bottle. Could he be this season Sam Darnold? Because he's coming. He went to Denver underneath Sean Payton. Hopefully, he learned how to play a little better. But Tua only played 11 games
Yep.
last season. And you have that whole disconnect when he has his concussions and he's out. The
Yep.
Miami Dolphins are 4-9 without Tua since 2020, including 2-4 last season, where they just didn't have got somebody to come in there. And you know, Wilson may not have to do a lot if he's asked to step in because they have so many weapons. Chen, Waddle, Hill, and now they have Darren Waller coming over. So that I thought was a sneaky move, and it may be needed. We'll see. Hopefully, Tua's healthy, but you just never know in terms of his concussions.
I really didn't think about that. I mean, I would look at guys like Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, on the move with their new homes. And I never really even kind of second guessed or really gave a second thought on Zach Wilson, who's just a journeyman quarterback at this point of his career, but he's still relatively young. And to your point, Tua is constantly banged up. I want to give you one on the another offensive side on the ball. I feel as though everyone thinks Drake May right now is going to take that next step. So what do? You go out and you get him a veteran wide receiver. How about Stephon Diggs right now being signed by the Patriots? I know he kind of had that, down year, but again, to be fair, he also had to deal with that ACL tear. I was projecting if he would have played 16 games, he probably would have had over 800 yards, which by NFL standards and Stephon Diggs, it's not really the great year, but that's kind of a veteran, steady Eddie kind of season after having 6 straight seasons of at least 1,000 yards receiving and prior to last year. How about Diggs going to New England? And again, giving a young quarterback a viable option when you're talking about a veteran target.
Yeah, Q. I think that's an exciting move for them. Obviously, been kind of a malcontent, bounce around in his career. You talked about going from Minnesota to the Bills, and he had all those great seasons for the Bills where he was exciting, and then kind of wore out his welcome there, ends up with the Texans, and you were talking about he gets hurt and his 1,000-yard season string got snapped. But if he's focused and happy, he's a dynamic player, and we've been talking about that for New England for so many years that they need a receiver. So you put him in there. You got Douglas, you got Polk, a bunch of other young guys. You're hoping that he can lead this group and kind of get them to step forward. Uh, McDaniels is now back there as the offensive coordinator. Alex Van Pelt ran kind of more of a conservative scheme under Gerard Mayo. He's out the door. And then you bring in Vrabel with that discipline. So I think this was a very good move for them. And we talked a lot this offseason in terms of the Patriots, and I think they could be one of the surprise teams to kind of jump forward. They are going to need some breaks early in the season, but Drake May has got a lot of people excited. Just like Bo Nix, he's played very well last year for a rookie.
All right, throw one or two more at me.
Yeah, Q. This one was interesting. Definitely not on the radar. You're like, oh, why did they do that? But the Houston Texans signed Nick Chubb, and he's 29 years old. Last year, he only ran for 332 yards, 3 TDs, only 3.3 yards per carry for the Browns. But I think he was coming back from that bad knee injury.
Yep.
Now he's coming to a Texans team, going to provide some competition for Mixon, Agunleye, and Pierce there. Finished ranked 15th in terms of yards in the league, around 1,400 or so, only 4.4 yards per carry. So I think he's a veteran presence. He can come in there and take some of the heat off of C.J. Stroud. Also, he's a guy at the running back. He can help pick up the blitz, and he knows that'll help in pass protection. So I thought that was a pretty sneaky signing by the Texans there.
I'll give one that the Eagles fans will lay off me for a day. Azeez Ojulari. I listen. He's just been injury prone with the Giants, but he's got a nose for the football. He can get to the quarterback. He had 6 sacks and I think 16 or 17 quarterback pressures in only 12 games with the Giants. He hasn't really. I don't think they've really tapped into his full potential. I think he's only 24 or 25. If he stays on the field, you've got more linebacker depth if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do like that move.
Yeah, I do. And they had to retool on the defensive line. Fangio's going to have a scheme, and it'll fit him into the mix, along with all those players that they drafted in the past couple of years. Eagles defense is still very young. That's why they were like, okay, a Brandon Graham can retire, a Sweat can leave, Milton Williams went to the Patriots, and they can kind of retool and reload because it's built around, all those Georgia Bulldogs and those few guys that they got from Alabama. So I think, he'll be a good addition along with all those young guys. So
Yeah, you got one more for me?
I got one more.
Go ahead.
And this has to do with your Commanders. The Commanders.
Fire away. What do we got here?
Last season they did well, but their offensive line still had some work to do. And Jaden Daniels sacked 47 times. So they trade with the Houston Texans. They send a third, a seventh in 2025. And in 2026, they send a second and a fourth. They get veteran Laramie Tunsil coming over to left tackle position, as well as a fourth rounder that they used in the draft. And what I thought there was they had Morgan Moses and some other guys that were little old journeyman type of guys. You're bringing in a veteran tackle. He's going to be the bodyguard for Jaden Daniels and help reignite that offense in terms of their running game. So I think Tunsil coming there is a good move for them. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly that line gels and can Daniels avoid that sophomore slump.
All right, I do want to go around or outside the league for a couple of things. You get these former quarterbacks, you get all these analysts saying, whatever they want to do. So Cam Newton came out, former quarterback, current analyst, and he's basically doubling down. He's saying that Jalen Hurts is not among the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And, he's pretty much putting everyone on blast if they disagree with him. This was on his podcast, 4th and 1. I think it was released Wednesday. And he said, basically he left Hurts off the list. And he said, he gave his reasons, or the point that Cam is trying to make here, ladies and gentlemen, is let's make people debate about sports again, because there are too many homeboys in the industry. There are too many people, the insiders that are moved by relationships and moved by oh man, I can't talk bad about this person, or I can't critique his game because I know the coach or I know this particular person. Well, you're not talking about the person. You're not even talking about your guys' relationship. You're more or less talking about their performance. And that's what I will talk about. Okay, fine. So I guess he basically was looking at Ryan Clark, Orlovsky, who criticized Newton's list because everyone gets so bent out of shape over list and this, that, the other thing. I don't I don't believe with some of these guys that are former players or former quarterbacks. I think some of them are clowns, but I also think some of them that kind of fly under the radar make really good sense. Like some of them are very good follows on social, but they're not on the major networks, i.e., like the mothership. And I guess the question to you is, do you believe when we're talking about certain quarterbacks that maybe former QBs that are now in the media, they are afraid to be overly critical? You know, that was kind of going to be the knock when Aikman came out and started doing games, but Aikman's fair. You know, Romo coming out. You know, how is Brady going to critique a quarterback, or the type of criticisms, the tone when describing a quarterback's poor play? I, for one, think if you're behind the mic and you're giving your opinion, if you're genuine and you can back it up, that's great. Not everyone wants to disagree. Not everyone will agree or disagree. But I also believe that the list is just BS. People make lists to make lists just to get a rise out of people. So you hear when Newton says, do you think there's any validity to that? Players are afraid to criticize because of their relationships with said player and or teams.
Oh, I agree. There's always going to be favoritism and bias, and that's always, even with certain writers. I used to see writers, they would become buddy buddy with a player, and then they write an article, a love letter about them. You know what I mean?
Or
So
some that couldn't. I know
yeah,
beat
and then
writers to this day that
exactly
can't, yep, that used to just for no reason, and I worked with them
couldn't
at
get over them,
at
and
Sports
then they
Network. Yeah,
just
could not
kill them.
killed
Just
Eli Frias. Yep.
every time, every I never liked that guy. No matter what they did, they're just always going to
Yep.
take that stance. And I do kind of agree with Cam that certain guys, they want to protect their job. You know what I mean? And um, they have their favorites. They did, like you can't talk about the Chiefs and say, oh, the refs are in their back pocket. You know what I mean? And everybody's going to defend that immediately, or whatever you have. So I always say keep it even. Look at the stats. Look at the film. Provide key analysis. And it's tough for these former players that were great. Like Tom Brady, it's got to be tough for him and in terms of looking at it objectively, because it was always like, oh, why would have did this? You know what I
But do
mean?
you think Newton is critical of Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts has more of a body of work in a couple years in the NFL than Cam Newton has his entire career? I think the whole thing also started, let's be honest, when someone asked Cam Newton, would you give up your MVP for a Super Bowl ring? And he said no.
Yeah, and he obviously has a bone to pick with Jalen Hurts, and he's not the only one. We've seen Chris Sims and some other guys, where they're afraid to say, "Oh, I was wrong about this guy." When Hurts was drafted, he came in as unheralded second rounder, and then he thought, maybe he is a gadget guy, but he's progressed. And then the biggest thing, like you said, Q, he's a winner. He won the Super Bowl. He won the biggest game, and then when he went to the Super Bowl before, he competed very well in 2022. The Eagles were right in that game, so it's a situation where, like, all right, enough's enough.
So let
And
me ask you this
yeah,
question. Let me ask you this question. Why are why do some feel the need to criticize a quarterback if they are surrounded with great talent? Like, is Jalen Hurts any less of a quarterback because he's throwing the ball to AJ Brown? He's throwing the ball to Devontae Smith. He's got a solid tight end. He's got some good skill set players. He's got a very good defense. He's got arguably the best back in the NFL. Like, why is that a negative? I mean, seriously, did we criticize Bradshaw because he was throwing to Stallworth and Swan and had Harris? Did we criticize Montana and say, well, guess what? You got Taylor, you got this kid Rice, you got Roger Craig. I mean, Aikman, we're going to criticize Aikman, Irvin, Harper, and Emmett Smith. Like, I feel as though there's these ex quarterbacks who haven't done diddly in their career. Sorry, They haven't. They haven't done anything compared to what Jalen Hurts has already done in a handful of seasons and a handful of years. And now the lazy take is, well, look who he's surrounded with. Look at the talent he has. Does that make him any less of a quarterback? The kid, he still has to go out there and perform. And oh, by the way, he outperformed Patrick Mahomes not once, but twice in a Super Bowl. One they lost, one they won, and he garnered MVP. Like, I just, and I'm not even an Eagles fan, but it bothers me so much. Like, just give the kid his just due and get off his back.
Yeah, it's that's an easy argument, because as you were talking about, you look at any Hall of Fame quarterback, any quarterbacks that have won, it's 11 on offense, 11 on defense. You know what I mean? You got to have the support. No great quarterback has not had a great offensive line or a running game.
Correct.
Players at receiver. You could go on and on. Montana, yeah, he had Jerry Rice. You know, it's just they all have a piece of the puzzle. Unfortunately, they always highlight the quarterback way too much. Whether they win or lose, they don't want to give them their just due. And it's crazy in terms of Jalen Hurts. I mean, I don't know if it's because he's kind of a low volume guy and he's not beating his chest all the time, and saying how great he is and everything. But he's a winner and he's a leader of men. I mean, that team loves him and he's the right guy for the situation. And he's going to be winning for a long time. So they need to kind of back off that stance that he's not top 10 or he's worse than this guy. The one list I was like, they had him worse than Jared Goff. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be afraid to fall on a fumble, right? In the biggest stage of his frigging career in his life. I mean, Cam Newton, he had a moment in the NFL and he was the best quarterback in the world when he won that MVP and they won 15-1. And then they got absolutely ambushed in the Super Bowl. That's it, bro. That's your career, man. That's it. You can be a talking head. You can have an opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you can't blame a quarterback because in any sport, all we do is stick the quarterback under the microscope because it's the face of the franchise, period. You ever notice when we're talking NBA, we're not tagging wins and losses to a player. We're not. It's an individual position, meaning there's so much scrutiny with it. The goalies in NHL, the pitchers on the mound, now the quarterback under center in the NFL. So yes, it's human nature to sit there and over critique, under critique, overanalyze, underanalyze. But like you said, all he does is win. And maybe it's because he has that, the work is completed, but there's still work to be done. I mean, I listen to we don't want that defending champion moniker out there. And I'm like, come on, man, embrace it, eat it up. But maybe that's not who they are personality wise. Maybe it's not, they don't want to pound their chest because then that's bulletin board material. It's easy fodder if they get, if they lose opening night to Dallas or they get waxed by Kansas City in week 2 and they struggle coming out of the gate. See, it wasn't a fluke what the team accomplished last year. It wasn't a fluke what Jalen Hurts did in the Super Bowl. It wasn't a fluke that Sirianni coached them up. They were the best team in the NFL. As painful as it pains me to say, they were the best team in the NFL. And when they got to the playoffs, they railroaded teams and they prevented Kansas City from doing something that we thought we would never see in our lifetime. And that's going back to back to back. So I just think at this point, I don't care if they go 1-4 and he struggles. I'm not going to sit there and say it's because they got fat or they're, sitting on their laurels. It just proves my point that I started the show with. It's just very hard to get back to the Super Bowl and win it again. And the teams that have been able to do it, it's just a different animal. But Hurts, I mean, he can play, man, period. He's a franchise quarterback.
He is. And they are the hunted, and he's going to have to prove it again. But some of these guys that have never liked him or given him his flowers, they have to have some objectivity. They have to say, dominant in the Super Bowl last season, as you said, played well in 2022, and he's a winner. I mean, he gets it done. And look at his rushing touchdowns, everything. If you factor in his whole body of work, it's not even close. And I always hear that guys always celebrating like a Justin Herbert. Well, Justin Herbert, what has he done? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, Hurts, he needs to be up there in terms of these lists. I know these lists are about debate and all that fun stuff, and the real games will play everything out, but you got to have some objectivity in
And that's
terms
the
of Hurts
problem.
and his
And
body's work.
that's what, Vince is saying is Cam, he's entitled to his opinion. He is. He's entitled. I listened to the whole spot several times. And I also listened to him basically say he'd rather have an MVP than a Super Bowl. That tells you the type of person and player he is. It's not a guy I want in the foxhole. You kidding me? You want a Super Bowl trophy instead of a ring? I'm sorry, an MVP trophy instead of a ring? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
He was
and
a
that
selfish player,
yeah,
period.
and that's all. I didn't win one, so this
That's
is
what
the
I'm saying.
stance I'm
Everyone's
going.
entitled to their opinion, but you also have to be fair and objective, even if it pains you. As a
Yeah,
Giant fan, it pains me to say how good this team is, and I think they do have a legit shot to get back to the Super Bowl, winning again. But I'm also being a realist, and I'm also trying to be objective in saying that in a lot of years, you and I have been doing this and covering the league and covering the NFL and speaking of players, it's so hard to get back. Like, you have to have everything go right again, or a lot of things break in your favor. And if they don't get back, I don't look at it and say it's a disappointment. It's just because now you got the target on your back. You got the bullseye on your back. Every team is going to give you a little extra. They're going to dig in a little more when they take on the Eagles. So, hence, before about that, well, let's sit there and say we don't want that defending champ moniker on us. I was just kind of like, all right, it's already July and I'm annoyed already by this team.
yeah, they're going. They're already people are talking about, oh, that ring's so gaudy. The wing, the rings that they gave out, and it,
Hey,
they're
a
the
ring is a
champ.
ring,
They're the
man.
champs. So everybody's going to get up to play them. And the great thing is we got 17 games that they're going to play, and we'll see how they turn out. Now the roster, when you look at man for man on paper, they should be ranked number one going into the season. You know what I mean? I haven't done my power rankings, but they should be number one, and it's not even close. I mean, they have a solid core of guys, whether it's Saquon, the offensive line is dominant, and they've reloaded on that defense, and they are already staunch enough. They were talking
Yeah.
about that's the greatest defense ever. So a lot of good things going for the Eagles, but they do play a tough schedule.
Yep.
Um, and the national spotlight's going to be on. They're going to be a national TV a lot, and we're going to see.
Which great segue when we close it out. Apparently, ESPN's trying to get UNC a lot of airtime with Belichick, and they sold out season tickets. I spoke to Costco yesterday from On3, Nick Costco, and we were talking about the ACC. And I mentioned, okay, what's the realistic expectations here? Can Carolina win 4, 5, 6 games? What would you deem a successful season? 6, 7, 7, maybe a bowl game, maybe a win. Okay, fine. My question to you is, and we debated this for a while yesterday, if Belichick wins 6 or 7 games and say they win the Tostitos, Pringles, Diet Coca-Cola Bowl, does that make him more attractive and appealing to the NFL? Or do you believe it's cycled out? Do you believe at this point the NFL, it's past Belichick by?
Well, I think Q will enhance his resume. He's already shown his body of work in the National Football League that he can get it done. It may make an owner say, "Oh, okay, he has enough energy. He's like Pete Carroll, even at his advanced age. Give him another bite of the apple." And I still think the right owner, if they want to make a splash, I always think Jerry Jones. We know that Schottenheimer was not his first choice. If he could get Belichick in there to kind of become the big story again and revitalize that team, he would do it. So I think he's going to get another shot. And I said, yeah, if they see that, okay, he's around young people, he's going to know guys coming into the draft that he scouted in school for one season, that it may reinvigorate the chance for him to get some interviews next year.
Can you see a scenario? And I know we got a couple minutes. I got to wrap it up. Do you envision a scenario where Cleveland flames out? They don't have their quarterbacks. Stefanski gets fired. They're in the Arch Manning sweepstakes, and that maybe sways, a prominent head coach in college or someone in the booth, i.e., or Belichick, to Cleveland.
Yeah, He would have to, Jimmy Haslam would have to back up the Brinks truck. He'd have to and then give him, the contract that he wants, and also QE'd have to give him total control. So that means
Yeah,
that Andrew Barry would probably be out. But if they give him all his checklist items, yeah, I think Belichick would be interested in that situation. But it's tough in Cleveland. They they just don't have a plan. So it's going to be fun to watch and see how Belichick does, and if he wants to get back in the league. He's so close to Schuler's record. So I,
that's what we
I
talked
I
about.
think that's really going to be the driver.
I I echo those sentiments as well. I told you too when I had my cup of coffee in Cleveland. It snowed in September. I was like, this is not for me. All right, good stuff as always. Don't forget catch Lloyd every Monday 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Coastal Sports Network with our guy Angel Martinez. Also does a great job with your co-host and your son joining as well. Give him a follow at Lloyd Vance, always kind enough to give us time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I appreciate it, brother. Excellent stuff. Great insight. Have a wonderful week, and we'll do it again next week.
All right, Q.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. Excellent, excellent, excellent stuff. Got a lot of comments. I know we're closing in on 6 o'clock. Sarge chimes in. Q, what do you honestly think the realistic expectations are for Hunter? I guess he's talking about Travis Hunter, and I think that's also what De Facto asked. I think this kid's going to be a player. I just want to see what they're what they're going to do. All right, I'm going to give him more reps on offense, reps on defense. I mean, the kid's an athlete; he can flat out play. Kevin C, North Jersey chiming in. Q, do you envision the depth chart of the Giants being Wilson and Dart? Do you think they cut Winston? I think they're going to keep Winston because he's still a veteran. They might go in DeVito is probably going to be on the outside looking in. I mean, well, let's be honest. Russell Wilson is going to be the week 1 starter. He's going to have his 6 games to get it done. But you have Winston on the roster just in case Russell Wilson gets nicked up. If he struggles and benched, then yes, you're going to start to hear rumors that Dart's getting more reps at practice, and then Dart will probably slide up into that backup role sooner rather than later. That's the way you look at it in the NFL, especially when you draft young quarterbacks. Let me give you the Q-Factor before we get out of here on a Thursday. We want a little baseball WNBA as well. M's plus 135 money line against the Angels. Padres minus 125. A little juice to the over on that one versus the Cards. And the Aces laying 2.5 versus the Fever. We had a nice little run, 7-3 over our last 10 in the WNBA. So when we're going to keep that momentum going, and of course the picks from our good friends of our Back Your Play segment, you'll see in the show notes 20% off fresh roasted coffee, BYP 20. Excellent stuff today on the wrestling. And of course, the passing of Hulk Hogan. And remember how we started the show. Legacies, how you view someone's legacy, it's not always, living that pure angelic life, right? I mean, we know what transpired with Hogan. When you look at someone's complete body of work, man, you got to be fair here, right? And from an entertainment standpoint, yeah, one of the best to do it. But again, his behavior, some of his comments, his line of thinking, I don't ally with it. I don't like it. But you're not going to tap dance on somebody's grave, so to speak. But you just got to kind of keep it in perspective when you start talking about legacies. But again, I'll say it again. WrestleMania 3, without a doubt. And if you missed it to start the show, you guys were 100% correct. This baby was $1.95 back in 1985. I would say probably about a graded 6-7, maybe a 7. It's all about the edges. You need to keep the corners and the edges kind of, nice and tight, as we like to say. All right, fast approaching 6 o'clock. Just a reminder to check out TriX57.com. Log on their Facebook page, TriX57.com. Also, you can follow me at RichQ on Q, IG and X, RichQ on TikTok, RichQ on the mic. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You guys have been fantastic. We're going to start putting out more shorts, also some Q's picks, Q-Fecta, Q's plays as well. And we'll do that from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee as we are fast approaching 6 o'clock. Back in the saddle tomorrow for a What the Frig Friday. Start thinking about what made you say what the frig this week in the world of sports. Excellent stuff from Lloyd Vance, always kind enough to join us. And of course, you guys with the comments and the eyeballs, and keep those comments coming. You can always tweet at me at RichQ on Q. You can hook up with me on Facebook as well, IG at RichQ. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. As we like to say, Have a wonderful Sports Thursday. It is supposed to be a hot one tomorrow. So stay cool, and we'll take you home from 4 to 6. And I can tell you right now, I will say this. It will be a t-shirt day tomorrow because it's going to be 93. All right, you guys have a good Sports Thursday. As always, be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.